This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Today is not a good day to be Prince Harry. As many of you know, Harry lost his bid to have a judicial review for getting back his security. And on top of that, it looks like the cost to pay back the government for this ridiculous case is going to surmount to over $1 million. And if this hasn't been ridiculous enough, Harry intends on seeking to appeal this high court ruling over his right. You heard that? His right to automatic police protection in the UK after his claim was dismissed today. Honestly, the level of entitlement is dumbfounding to me. But what I think is happening here is he's purposely doing this to stall for something. And I'm not really sure what that is yet. Whether it be some type of injunction protecting additional information coming out. I mean, it sure seems like it. We have this ruling, and you would think that, okay, give up already. It's a lost cause, but you're going to go ahead and sink yourself further into debt over something that most likely is going to get turned down again. Could it be that Meghan might be whispering in his ear, threatening him to leave him if she doesn't get this special status back? I don't know. But I do think that there is something more to the story, especially with all the financial talk, especially around taxes and Meghan's case with her sister. I mean, all these things have to go to discovery. And, one way to get out of it would be to have this IPP status back, right? Just a thought. Also, another thing, as I was reading through the 52-page judgment, what struck me was that he was so adamant to get this Metropolitan Police Service back, this special level of service, only for Britain. Now, here's the thing. Throughout the whole entire document, they have made many accommodations for Harry to give him solutions around protecting him. Every time he has gone to the United Kingdom, he has had adequate protection, as well as the continued risk assessments that they do on him, throughout the year. So the question is, why is that not enough, considering he's not in the UK very much? And when he goes to the UK, he gets the proper security to take care of him. So I'm just thinking out loud, why is he so keen on having the Met Police back, or also known as Scotland Yard? Could it be that if he does get this back, then he would have the equivalent here in the United States, which is the FBI? That is, kind of scary to me. I'm not completely sure, but I am pretty positive that the FBI and Scotland Yard talk to one another. Who knows? I really have no idea. However, in reading this document, you realize how nasty of a person Prince Harry really is. After reading this, it really makes you dislike Harry. Not only did it demonstrate Harry's arrogance, but it also showed Harry had no problem lying, manipulating, and deceiving the people who were actually trying to help him, but instead he threw quite a few people under the bus. I was really glad to see the justice actually calling Harry out and putting him in his place in the most politically correct way. But let me show you some examples of where Harry was shown to be a liar. Remember when Harry had stated that he offered to pay for this security? Well, towards the end of this document, the justice puts him technically on blast by saying here, the claimant, meaning Harry, complains that his offer personally to reimburse or proactively finance the cost of protective security was not taken into account by RAVEC. The claimant, Harry, points out that inquiries in this regard were made by the royal household to the Cabinet Office. The answer, however, that emerges from the evidence is that even if Sir Richard Mottram had been personally informed at the time about the offer, it would have been refused on the basis that a person is either entitled to the relevant protection as a member of RAVEC cohort, or they are not. This was confirmed as a principled position for the defendant to take by a decision of 15th of February 2022. The claimant, Harry, judicial review challenge in respect of that decision was refused permission. Now, here's the thing I want to point out. It wasn't Harry who initially made the suggestion that they would pay for it, The royal household, meaning Charles and probably his grandmother, made that offer. And here's where they say it. It was the royal household that made this suggestion to offer to pay for security on January 13th. It wasn't the claimant, Harry, who made that suggestion, as you can see here. Royal household had also asked whether it was open to them to ask to pay for security delivered by the MPS. They ruled this out, meaning, it was shut down immediately. You can't pay for the police. Like, you remember when Harry gave his sob story to Oprah about how they pulled his security and he never thought that they would take it away, almost like he was like sucker punched after they pulled it away, because he was born into this life. He didn't choose it and the risk stays the same. Anyhow, it shows here that Sir Edward Young had been working with them to try to find a private security solution that would have been comparable to protecting and satisfying all their security needs. But no, that wasn't good enough. No, sirree. In addition to that, now this is where I interject and say that I truly believe that Meghan and Harry lied about their move to Canada, and they were not letting on that their plans was really going to the United States. Fiona, their private secretary at the time that was negotiating this, did indeed say that they were looking at solutions for the US. You can see here as early as February 20th, and I believe that that person with the A was Sir Clive Alderton, who wrote to the claimant, Harry, to say that working with Fiona, I am aware of the high level policy discussions that have occurred, but do not work at a level where I can directly influence outcomes. What Alderton had been doing on Harry's behalf was scoping what best in class commercial security provision is available in Canada and in the US. So here you have it, folks. It wasn't like they said, "Oh, they're going to go to Canada and that's where they're going to reside." I mean, there was an assumption that they were going to stay there, but there was no confirmation that they were going to live there. Ultimately, the end goal was California. And we know that they were in the United States in the month of February as they were visiting Stanford, they were going to Florida, they were at Harvard. I mean, they literally were there up until they had to go to the UK for their final engagement. So for them to say that they moved from Vancouver to the United States on March 14th, I somehow have a hard time believing. In fact, Harry has proven to lie in court, and for all we know, he lied here about this date as well. I've shown in past videos why the dates don't add up, and it is quite possible that Harry's visa will dictate otherwise. And this is another reason why we need to know what that visa says. I could totally understand why people hated working for these two. Imagine your boss lying through their teeth about your capabilities. So, Miss Fiona Wickelham, she was the private secretary helping to, make sure that this negotiation went well and was doing her job. Harry, on the other hand, was saying, "Well, had I known that this meeting was going to happen on the 27th, I would have been there because Fiona has only been working for us for 6 months and she doesn't know anything." Here's an excerpt of Harry's testimony in which he says, "If Sir Richard is suggesting that Miss Macklewham's attendance is sufficient because she was able to make representations on my behalf, I do not agree. I did not know about the significance of this meeting in advance, and so far as I'm aware, neither did Miss Macklewham, because if she had known, she would have told me. I did not therefore know that this was a critical meeting in which decisions would be taken in relation to my security. As a result, I did not brief Miss Macklewham on what representation should be made on my behalf ahead of that meeting." And this was the crux of the case in which Harry was like, "Look, I wanted to have the chance to speak to these people myself, but didn't get a chance to do it. And had I known, I would have been there." Kind of not really appropriate. And he's blaming this on her inexperience, in which Harry says that his discussions with Miss Macklewham at this point principally concerned Harry's work program in order to provide assurance that he was business as usual with limited changes. Harry says it was relevant to note that Ms. McElwim had only been in her job as private secretary for a matter of months at the time of January 27, 2020 meeting. Given the importance of this matter, he says, I would have expected RAVEC to alert me personally to the fact that this would be a critical meeting in which a decision would be taken on my security, so I could request that I could attend or make representations on my behalf or give full instructions to Ms. McElwim about what representations to make. Harry further says that he did not know that he could or should have been made representations concerning his security to Sir Richard Mottram. I mean, seriously, this guy is such a jerk. But this justice was not having it. As you can see in bullet number 226, he writes, it's apparent from the above that there is no substance in the contention that the defendant failed to act in a procedural fair manner. In particular, there was no reason to assume that Harry's private secretary was unaware of the security issues arising as a result of Harry's and whatever that redacted is. On the contrary, the evidence shows that she was entirely conversant with them following the meeting on January 27, 2020, if not before. She would have been well aware of RAVEC and its chair, who was at that meeting. If there had been the need for any questions to be asked about RAVEC, Miss McElwim can be expected to have asked them. Yes, because she's not stupid. Anyhow, this is where he slams Harry down and says, I do not accept that the fact she may have been private secretary for some 6 months has any bearing. Her communications are indicative of someone with a good grasp of her job. Boom. He was totally not having that excuse and also backing the fact that Fiona most definitely would have turned around and told him what was relayed in the meeting. So Harry can't say that, oh, he didn't know that they were going to yank his security and he was caught blindsided. You know what I mean? Here he has it stated in writing that, yeah, this woman was on her game in trying to deal with these two idiots and negotiating and getting them something comparable to what he was used to. But no, it wasn't good for Harry. Instead, he had to throw a tantrum and make these people's lives so difficult. And at the end of the day, he's still crying about it. Check out what a little petulant biatch Harry is. On February 10th, communication from Sir Edward Young was forwarded by the Cabinet Office to Sir Richard Mottram. Also, that same day, Sir Richard Mottram received by email a copied and paste extract from a letter which Harry had sent to the cabinet secretary, meaning he did not give him the full letter. Sir Richard was not given the entire letter at the time, and he says in his witness statement that the part concerned with security arrangements in Great Britain was passed on to him because the cabinet office wanted to explore whether he thought it was better for him to respond. Sir Richard replied on February 12th, saying that he did not think it was sensible for him to reply to parts of the letter, not least because much of it was focused on arrangements overseas. What do you know? Which was not matter for RAVEC, meaning that this would be the U.S.'s problem. In any case, it goes on to say, Harry's letter to Sir Mark Sedwell, sent by Fiona McElwim on February 10th, expressed Harry's disbelief that such important conversations were being had without any attempt or anyone to consult him. Harry could not see how he could have had his security removed unless the current risks to him and his family had decreased. And there's something redacted there. I'm sure he put in some BS. Anyhow, Harry asked, who would be willing to put him and his family in a position of extreme vulnerability and risk? A position that no one was willing to put my mother in 23 years ago. And yet today, with greater risks, as mentioned above, with the additional layers of racism and extremism, someone is comfortable taking accountability for what could happen. So, yeah, laying on the guilt trip on these people, like saying, how could you do that? My wife, she is a black woman and she's in danger. Come on, man. Like, what a douche. One of the things that I found interesting was that the royal family did understand that independent processes and decisions about provision of publicly funded security were the decisions of the government, so meaning the government of the UK, government of Canada, and any other host government, meaning like the United States. So to me, that tells me that they're not involved with any of those discussions per se. Do you think that the United States gave Harry and Meghan the creme de la creme of security when they first got here? Absolutely, they received it, especially if Harry and Meghan came over here before it was announced that their security was being taken away. No doubt they came over here before the announcement was made and most likely glided right on in being protected. I have no doubt that that's probably what happened. And finally, saving the best for last, the best part of this response that was given by the justice was reducing Harry to no different than any other celebrity, meaning you're not royal anymore. And in that, he uses the example of the situation that happened in New York with the fake car chase. Apparently, New York had given a letter to Harry's lawyer indicating that, yeah, there was some reckless behavior. But the justice pounced back and responded to it. Let me show you what he said. So, this is what it says. I've noted earlier how the claimant, Harry, took grave exception to the categorization by the defendant of this issue in 2023 as relating to privacy. Plainly, the uncontrolled activities on highways of photographers can pose both a direct and indirect danger to the safety of road users and pedestrians. That danger is not to be underestimated. The essential point that was being made on behalf of the defendant, however, is that potential problems arising from the activities of paparazzi are not a matter for RAVEC. As current chair explains, and whatever that redacted is, the same point emerges from the evidence of Mr. Hipgrave. RAVEC is concerned with security against persons bearing a hostile intent towards an individual, not those who, however recklessly, may cause danger in their efforts to get a photograph of a celebrity that they can then try to sell to a media outlet, as the current chair says, blah, blah, blah. It is in the light of this important point that the letter of December 6, 2023, from the Chief of Intelligence of New York City Police Department needs to be considered. As noted, contrary to what appears to have entered the public domain, the letter states that reckless endangerment did take place on May 16, 2023, when the claimant and the Duchess were driving in Manhattan. The fact that blah, 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 in any event, it does not blah, blah, blah. Prince Harry suggests that if a photographer is able to get so close to the vehicle in which the claimant is traveling in order to take a photograph of him, then so too could someone with intent to harm him. Whilst this may be true, it sheds no light on the risk of there being persons with such hostile intent, meaning this falls flat. I mean, we all know that these paps are not dangerous because it's Megan who is the one calling them and paying them. So, like, it's kind of funny that the justice is like, we don't have a provision to protect celebrities who, get their photo taken. There is no real intent to harm, which is true. Have we seen yet any of these photographers lash out on Meghan or Harry? No. In fact, they get so close up under them that that they are just part of the family. Anyhow, I thought I would just go over this briefly. It is exhausting to see how much manipulation, Harry has put into this, and he's still going with it. But I am sure that this is going to start unraveling, especially with Harry's visa case going on. Once that comes out, my bet is that this whole story is going to crumble to pieces. Trust me, there is more to this that they definitely hid from us, and I will even bet that the narrative is way different than what we actually have been told, especially in these court documents. But definitely share, what do you think? Do you think that this is going to continue to go on, or do you think that Harry at some point is going to stop? Why do you think that he's still pursuing this? Do you think that there's something a little more sinister that, he's trying to cover up? Definitely let me know your thoughts. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.